So I think many people who have suffered with anxiety or paranoia or depression can relate that you're not scared of the world. You're actually scared of how you see yourself in the world. And sometimes you can't see a way out. There are days where I would be absolutely fine. And then I'd come home and I'd completely break down. And that was terrifying. Like, I was like, how can I be two completely separate people?
Hello and welcome to the Go Encourage podcast, where I talk to real people about real life, trying to gain insight from their experiences around courage and their thoughts on the topic. On today's episode, I'm talking to Becca Francis, who's an actress, a singer and a dancer, recently performed in Mother Goose with Sir Ian McKellen and John Bishop at London's West End. Really excited to be talking to her today, so let's get the conversation started. So here we are in the studio with Becca Francis.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really pleased you joined us today.
I've never done anything like this.
Really?
Yeah.
You've done quite a lot of cool
I have
stuff
done
there,
a lot
haven't
of
you?
cool stuff, but I'm privileged that you've asked me to come.
Amazing.
Who knows what I'll say?
Let's see. Let's see. All right. So kicking it off straight away, what I ask every guest every time is, what does your name mean?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, luckily you said that you were going to ask me that because I had no idea.
Okay.
I Googled it.
You don't
and
watch the podcast? You haven't been watching every single episode?
No, well, I've watched a few. And I had to Google what my name means. And I think in the Hebrew, it means captivating,
Ooh.
which I thought was quite cool. And I liked
cool
that.
name.
Yeah. It's like captivating. And like, there was another word, snare, I think it said.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that.
Captivating. Oh, that plays in quite nicely.
Yeah, I think so.
With what you do.
Exactly.
All right, we'll get to that. So, where are you from?
I am from Bracknell.
Bracknell.
Born and bred.
I've had a few people from Bracknell on the show.
Yeah. It's not too far from here.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm disclosing where we are.
We could be anywhere.
We could be anywhere. But yeah, so I grew up there with my family. I'm one of 5.
Okay.
So I'm the youngest.
Wow.
I don't know if that says anything about me.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I'm the youngest.
So brothers, sisters?
I've got 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay.
And I have twin brothers. If that's quite a
cool.
cool fact.
Yeah. Identical?
They're non-identical.
Okay.
And they're very different, but for very different reasons. And I love them both. But yeah, I lived there. What else? My parents separated. So then my dad moved to Cheltenham,
Right.
which I love. I love Cheltenham. And I used to go there all the time. And it was like a little holiday destination.
Nice.
So that was cool. But
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. All right.
That's it.
So thinking back to that stage of life, was there an aspiration that you had? Oh, I want to be this when I grow up, or I want to.
Yeah. I always wanted to be a singer and an actress and a dancer. Like always. I joined a choir. I remember joining a choir when I was in year 3. My choir teacher was called Miss Ray. I remember her saying like, oh, you have a really good voice. And I just ran with that. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to be a singer. But even before then, in nursery, I remember my dad recorded everything when we were younger. So we watched a lot of it back, which is really cool. And I did a production of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears at nursery. And obviously I was Goldilocks.
Obviously.
It's like, that was probably where it started. But when I watched the video back, I was actually rubbish.
Right.
But quite good for a 3-year-old. Like I knew all my lines.
When you watched the video back, when you were...
Yeah, like recently.
Oh, recently.
Yeah, like I watched it recently and I was
fair.
like, oh, rubbish. But actually quite good for a 3-year-old. So
Okay.
yeah, I've always wanted to be singer, actress, dancer. But yeah.
So the next question would be, what do you actually do now?
That makes me giggle because I guess I could say now that I am an actress and musical theatre performer, and that's what I did my degree in. I've recently got a professional credit in it, so I actually physically can say now that I am an actress, which is really cool because I wanted to be that my whole life. And I don't take that lightly because I think it's a really amazing thing to know what you want to do. But a lot of my friends when I was at school didn't know what they wanted to do.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword because if you know what you want to do, there's a lot of room for disappointment. And I think I sat in that for a while after I graduated. I was like, am I going to be able to do this? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. But now that I've kind of done it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels all worth it. And I feel really proud of me. And like, when I look back at that little 3-year-old, I'm like, oh my gosh, we did it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So that's
it.
cute.
Oh, I like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So yeah.
What's really interesting there as well, like, is your teacher, Miss Ray. Miss Ray.
Yeah.
She spoke those words over you.
Yeah.
And that gave you, some kind of, I don't know, confidence.
Yeah.
You could call it prophecy. You could
Yeah,
call it whatever you want. But, that was spoken over you and you sort of held on to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've done a bit of teaching now since I've been out of school. And I'm now really careful what I say to my students because I'm like, wow, what if I am that person's moment in the story? Like my teacher Becca said this to me and I did this after. So I kind of want to be that person for someone else now, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, shout out to all the teachers because they're amazing. And even my old drama teacher, her name was Mrs. Manning, and she's a huge inspiration to me, and she's probably the reason why I even went to drama school because of her lessons and the relationship that we had. And she was just so encouraging and inspiring. So that's nice.
Drama teachers are the best.
They are.
I think one of the best teachers I had was our drama teacher, Mrs. Joyce, if you're watching. But she was awesome. And again, it is that kind of just, I think we can easily have a ceiling on our life and go, I'm going to be and I don't want to say anything in case people have dreamt of being that, but I just want to be a this or a that.
Yeah.
But actually, some of these people that we, encounter in life, teachers, mentors, uncles, aunties, whatever, just give you that glimpse of, well, actually, have you reached for the stars? Yeah.
And I think that's what life is about. You're not meant to do life on your own. And that's so obvious in how, like, in society, it's kind of meant that everyone should have a partner. Like everything's about a relationship, or, we have these specific days to celebrate mums and dads and love. And so it's like, we're all geared to, basically life is telling us, don't do it on your own all the time. And I think teachers, when you're younger, have a huge part to play in that because you see them probably sometimes more than you see your own family. Sometimes, like grandparents and stuff, you probably see your English teacher more than you would see your own grandma. So they have a huge impact in your life.
Definitely. And everyone's got different circumstances as well.
Yeah, for
what
sure.
you assume as a 2.4 children household isn't really the case.
100%. And that's, I love it.
Big up teachers.
Big up teachers.
Come on, teachers. So can you tell us a bit about your acting world? Like we're naturally there, so it'd be really cool to see. I think you've been in something recently that was quite big.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? When I talk about it, I still can't believe it because I graduated, I did 4 years musical theatre professional training.
Where was that?
Graduated from PPA in Guildford. I studied in Guildford in 2021. Got my BA honours in musical theatre, and I got an agent, and basically that's how you get a job usually in the performing arts world, is you have an agent and they put you up for auditions and things like that. So I graduated and had an agent, and I was like, I'm really excited. I had really cool auditions, didn't really get anything through. I actually went on to do another job. I was au pairing for a family, which was really cool. And so I was just auditioning, and then a job it just kind of came out of nowhere. This job called Mother Goose was needing a swing, which is someone who covers all the ensemble and is just ready to do anything basically.
Okay.
And I got given the role, and it was crazy. And it was, like the craziest thing ever, because I think I'd waited so long to get a part. And I think, like I said before, that whole year I was out of school was really difficult, because I was like, what if I don't get anything? And I was auditioning and constantly being rejected left, right and center. I think, just being told it wasn't the right time, or, I didn't look right, I didn't sound right, and just being attacked for personally what I could bring, which is really hard, but it is what you sign up for when you join this industry. So when I got the job, I was like, I cannot believe it. And then I got the contract through, and then I signed the contract. And then, I met with my agent, and he was like, this is what you're going to do. And then I started rehearsals. So the job, it's called Mother Goose. It was a panto, and it was one of the best times of my life so far.
Come on.
Yeah. We did 6 weeks in the West End, which is like, I don't know, like the biggest dream come true to like say that I've worked in the West End.
Yeah,
and then we did a 12-week UK tour. So that was really fun.
Oh, up and down.
Yeah.
Oh,
so we
amazing.
went a week to loads of cities. We went to Cardiff, Dublin, Sheffield, Leicester, loads, Oxford. Really fun.
I'm really interested in like the behind the scenes type of stuff. So when you went on, on this tour, is it you and the cast all together, traveling together, or you kind of all meet there? Is there kind of like a camaraderie between you guys?
Yeah, I think, well, they say when you're in a show, you do become like a family. And I didn't understand that before because obviously I'd never been in a show and I'd never done that. But from the day one of rehearsals, you are literally like put together and you're rehearsing, hours a day. And then when you actually get on tour, you're living with these people, eating with these people, working with these people. I spent all my time with these people.
Nice.
Luckily for me, they were like the most amazing people ever. And, so you do become like a family. And if you have any like differences or any issues, you have to hash them out, because at the end of the day, you're about to go on stage holding hands, singing, dancing with these people, or you're about to go back to your digs where you live and you have to, and we just worked things out. And luckily everyone was amazing in the cast. And I don't know, for me, it was my first job and I got to learn from some of the most incredible people ever. I mean, our lead actor was Sir Ian McKellen.
So exciting. That's so
Which was crazy. And also we had John Bishop as well, who was lovely. And they just really showed what it meant to lead a cast. And they were very generous and like humble and everything like that. And so those are the people that you would know. But in terms of, for me, I was also working with musical theatre, in my eyes, royalty, like the other actors and actresses. I've watched these guys in shows and I had like seen them do their thing. And then I was suddenly working with them in their dressing rooms.
Who
living
were they?
with
We
them.
give them a little shout out as well.
Well, like, so I'll have to shout out my dressing room girls. So it's Genevieve Nicole, who's done like every job ever, Symbia Kande, Laura Tyra and Mary Barkley. Like, they're all girls that I honestly look up to their careers and I've just learned so much from them. Anna Jane Casey, who was the supporting actress, she is awesome. She's a mum and she just nailed life, basically, I thought. And it was just inspiring watching people who are older and more experienced like just smash this career. And it gave me hope that I can make this my career. I can do this. I can own a house and I can have children one day and I can just keep on doing it, because it's quite daunting being
so it's not either or, right? It's both and. You can,
exactly. And I think it's a difficult, sometimes quite isolating career, because at the end of the day, we do all of our work at night. So I was like, I'm never going to be able to host a dinner party. But then we had loads of dinner parties on tour, but they were just all at 11 p.m, which is fine. And it's like more fun that way.
Sure.
So I worked with some inspiring people and I got to tick off loads of stuff on my career, like goal list, like working the West End tour. I got to cover a principal role, which was really exciting. Just amazing. Just amazing. And my agent was brilliant. And
John Bishop, right? I'm a fan.
He's the best.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's absolutely brilliant. And then Sir Ian McKellen, obviously well known for many roles. And I know Gandalf is like a big one that everyone talks about. But he was Magneto. He was like in the X-Men. That's like, what?
It's really cool.
Really
I mean,
cool.
He is an incredible actor, but he's also just an amazing person.
Yeah,
so
sure. And
awesome.
I guess like, I promise it won't all be about this, but you got to see them for who they are and on a day-to-day and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was nice. Like, we did things like we went out for dinners and stuff like that. And it was just, like I said, it was just a proper family feel, which was really nice, especially being away from home.
Yeah, sure.
Which, wasn't the best and easiest at some times. So I was just glad that I met the people that I met and got the opportunities I got. So, yeah.
So last question around sort of being around, can I say celebrities, is you being one of them now as well. Did something click for you, or was there, I guess looking from the outside in, you could forget that they're human beings, and you know
Yeah.
there could be a sort of divide or something within yourself. Did something happen for you to go, well, actually, I can see myself sort of connecting in this way?
Yeah, I think it's quite a different way to meet. You know, if you were just to meet a celebrity on the street, there is that kind of status where you're probably going to be a bit flustered, or you're like, oh my gosh, there they are, or maybe they're like with, I don't know, an entourage or something. But in theatre, everyone's sort of on an equal playing field, because you're all, you know, they say that there's no small parts, just small actors. So you're all should be realistically treated the same. And
Sure.
you know, I felt like in this job, like we were all valued. And when you're on that stage, what the beautiful thing about acting is that you're not yourself. So, you know, Ian wasn't Sir Ian McKellen on that stage. He played Mother Goose. So, and I was his penguin. So actually like all of that like status and like celebrity labels were taken away because of the job we were doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite a unique setting to sort of be in with these celebrities, because we were just the same. We actually just became all friends. And so that was really nice about that. But yeah, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's good. It's good. And I think part of it kind of goes back to, you know, when we're looking at your name and what it means and captivating and the whole thing about, you know, being an actress and captivating attention and taking people on a journey with your character and stuff like that.
It's all about that.
It's fascinating. I did A-level theatre studies. So I'm really like interested in like, you know, kind of how it works out. And so obviously very small scale, but was part of a few sort of little productions. And we sort of, I think we did one just raising awareness around drugs in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So we ended up doing a little production in a police station and brought some youth around and stuff like that.
Cool.
And a few other things, but the people that I worked with, it was just exactly like that. It was like family, like you were in each other's pockets.
Yeah.
You know, if someone was going through something tough, we were all going through that tough thing and trying to
100%.
help them through it and stuff like that, which
100%.
I don't think, you know, gets seen a lot or understood.
No.
Because I think people just, you know, see you as someone who just turns up, does it, and off you go.
Yeah,
you know?
and like, you know, we warmed up together every day, and that was like a time to see everyone and say hi. And I mean, and also sometimes you're doing really vulnerable stuff. I mean, our show was crazy and it was a panto. We did it for 6 months. So we just were like every night finding new things to play around with. But I can imagine if you were doing something quite serious and like something with a bit more depth and meaning behind it, you have to respect people, and you also have to let people in, because what you're doing is so vulnerable. You need your fellow actors around you to be like, we've got you, and to sort of remind you that you are acting, I guess, so it doesn't like affect you or anything like that. But we were just having fun, and it was just nice to have fun with really kind, lovely people who were friends. Like we were just like, I jumped on a trampoline for the opening number, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I get paid for this. Like I love it.
Cool. That is really cool.
Yeah.
I think that there's an art to it as well. Like picking up on what you just said there. You know, on a serious role, if someone was acting aggressively towards you, it's kind of knowing that this isn't real, but at the same time, I've got to bring some real emotion into this to help, you know, pad out the character and help the audience, you know, understand what it's like and responses and things. So
I think that's why I love acting. I think I love it, and I love the whole like element that someone can come into our show and just genuinely not think about their life for 2.5 hours and be so engrossed in what's happening on stage. And I think we need more of that. Like, you know, people switching off their phones and just watching something entertaining is the best.
And there's something about theatre that is so magical in comparison to, you know, popping Netflix on or going to, like, I love a movie, don't get me wrong. I love going to the cinema and stuff, you know, but there is something about watching something happen right in front of you, and like, you know, real people. I know the people on the movie are real as well, but it's all there, it's live. And then the responses in real time, you know,
best. And also just knowing that these people on the stage, this is their dream. You don't do this job if it's not your dream. I can tell you that for free. Like you just don't. So just knowing when, you know, next time you see a show, just thinking that person is living their dream, or that person has auditioned for this show like 7 times, and then they finally got the call saying they've got it, and they're getting to do that every night. I think that when I go, because I guess because I am an actress and I know the other side of it, when I go, I get really emotional for the people on stage who are singing the big song, or maybe like someone's on for their understudy and they're finally getting the chance to be the lead. I just find that really emotional. And I had a friend come watch me, and they were like, I smiled the whole time because I knew how happy you were doing the show. And I think that's such a beautiful moment that I could share with my friends and my family who have supported me. Like, my family have supported me since I was 3.
Right.
Like, all the, you know, I did stage school when I was younger, all that money, all that, those times that they gave me lifts, coming to watch me in every school show. It's nice to be able to give something back in the form of entertainment with Ian McKellen.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it though. I love the whole, because I think, you know, and I don't want to put like, I don't want to say this generation, that generation, whatever. I think it's just mentality. People are people. I think, you know, sometimes people in life get a really lucky break. They were a janitor. I think it was Harrison Ford. I think he was a janitor or something like that. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it. But I think he was doing something and he just ended up just falling into acting. And then, you know, in some of the biggest movies ever. Yeah. And then I think people think that's the norm. Oh yeah, I'll just fall into it. 100%. You know, it'll just happen. But
and I think especially in the acting world, we're so saturated with talented people and talented people. Like, when I go to an audition, there are usually 10 people who look exactly like me, who are waiting for the exact same role. And they're all talented, like, by our own right. We've all worked so hard to be here. We've all paid a lot of money to train, and we could all get the job. Sometimes it's just about who you know, and same with every industry. And sometimes it's just about having a certain personality trait, or maybe you've got more on your CV, or, you know, I've heard of incidents. What's that word?
Incidents, yeah.
Yeah, that, where people have had more Instagram followers and they've just got the job, which is obviously like not ideal, but you just can't, like, I think for this industry, so many people deserve a chance. And I think for me, I genuinely just got lucky break. And I'm hoping that continues, because I'm currently unemployed. But
that's another thing I was going to ask you. In that, you know, in that career, it is like, I'm employed for so long, like maybe 6 months, a year or whatever, and then that's it. You know, kind of.
I mean, I've been out of this job for 3 weeks now, and I miss it so much. I miss everything about it. But yeah, it's so up and down. I had a 6-month contract, so I knew that after 6 months I wouldn't have a job. And when I was doing Mother Goose, I was also auditioning for other shows. Obviously, none of them have come into fruition. I have an audition tomorrow, so that's good news. Cool. But yeah, it's so up and down. It's
you tell them tomorrow. Yeah, I was on a podcast yesterday.
Yeah. I'm just on a podcast. I'm kind of busy, but yeah. So yeah, just wait to see.
So in terms of, I want to ask you a little bit more about your personality, but just because we're here, touching on what you said earlier and what you said now in terms of, you know, the you know, job security, you are your brand, aren't you? So how you look, how you talk, your attitude, I guess, when it comes to finding a job, whatever stage in life you're in, like if you look like a mum, if you don't look like a mum, it's going to actually impact the roles that you can have if you're playing a mum, let's 100%. Say. I'm sure there's all sorts of other examples. It's quite a vulnerable place because you're literally being judged for not who you are, but I guess what people see on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing people will see of me is my face, my headshot. So I got professional headshots done, and that's what they see. And if I don't look right, then they won't see me in the room. If I'm the wrong height, they won't see me in the room. So that's the kind of craziness of this industry. And then when you get in the room, you just want to put your best foot forward, and you want to sing the best song, you want to dance the best, you want to give the best acting performance. So it's really vulnerable, and it's really scary. And what's also quite scary about it is that there's not just one interview with any job. You're going to go for 3 or 4 rounds of the same thing being judged. But I think what's important to remember is that the people that are on the panel, we call it a panel, and they want you to be amazing. Like, same when you go for a job interview, the person who's interviewing you wants you to be the best fit because they want the job to be done the best it can. So I think when I go for an audition, I think to myself, and this might be really naive, but I think to myself, they want me to be amazing. I
like that.
So I'm going to be amazing with everything that I've learned and what I have built in myself, like, you know, trying to keep fit, trying to have singing lessons, trying to, you know, always when I'm watching a film being like, what's that actor doing? Like, I'm always doing that because I am my brand. But then also realizing that I can't change my physical appearance too much. And, you know, who I am is who I am. And I'm not going to mold into some sort of like different personality trait just to get a job. I want to be quite strict on that.
Sure.
But equally, like, it is my dream and I want to work and I have bills to pay. So I'm like, it's a real like, I don't know.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Wow. And I really like what you said there in terms of looking at the panel as people who are actually for you. They want you to succeed. What a great way to look at life like that.
I feel like, 100%. Yeah. Like, you can think about that in any job, not just acting. So yeah.
So Becca, let me ask you, how do you handle nerves? Because I would imagine that's a big part of, you know, what you do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, thinking about nerves just makes me go like, because they're just awful. I think how I deal with it is I kind of have that mentality of, no, Becca, they want you to be amazing and they want to book you for this part because you're perfect for it. And I don't know, sometimes that can be quite, like I said, naive of me being like, they want me to be amazing and I am amazing. But actually that just really helps me in the moment of thinking, I've got this. And also just being prepared. What's that phrase where they say, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I think in this industry, it's 100% that. Like if I've not learned a song fully, or if I've not learned the script or researched the part that I'm auditioning for, I'm already on the back foot and the people that are sat next to me are already way ahead. And I think that gives me a real charge of being like, when I'm in the room, I want to be as prepared as I can. So I need to learn all the material. So I deal with that as well. In terms of like actually performing, I thought in this job I would be like super nervous, but I actually just was super, like, I had the best time and I was so excited for our first show. And there were things I was nervous about. Like, I covered a few parts. I was a bit nervous when I went on for them, but ultimately I had rehearsed. Again, I had prepared this show. Like, we rehearsed a lot as well. So I felt just that I could enjoy it. But auditions to this day are like the most nerve-wracking thing in the world because you want to make a good impression. And I think the effort of making a good impression is sometimes worse than the material I have to sing, always.
Sure.
So yeah, I just choose to believe in myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
It's not like, when I say that, I'm not like, I'm just believing in myself. It's actually taken me years to build that. But I think if I really want to make this succeed, I have to be my best cheerleader, because I think everyone else will probably want to tear you down, especially in my industry. You know, you meet people and they're amazing, but you could meet people who aren't so amazing and who are after the same job as you and maybe try and tear you down a bit. So I think for me, I'm like, I have to believe in myself first. Otherwise, what is the point of all the rejection?
Right.
Or if I don't believe in myself, I'll get one no and I'll be knocked back 6 spaces. And you can't do that in this industry. You have to take the rejection as, okay, shrug that off, get the feedback and move on to the next job. And I think that's what I've learned recently in auditioning.
And is that, you know, you said you've done the work to get there. Have you always been like that? Have you been someone who keeps pushing through against no's, or did you have to really, I don't know, do something to get there?
Yeah, I think I've always been a fairly confident person in terms of this career and it being the right career for me. So I think I just didn't want anything to get in the way of that. And there are jobs that, dare I say, like mean more. Like, for example, my ultimate goal would be, I can't believe I'm about to say this on a podcast, because then it means that if I do it or I don't do it, it's like a thing. My ultimate goal is to be in Wicked the musical. And I've loved that show for my whole life and I would love to be in that show. So I imagine I'll be more nervous for that audition because it means a little bit more. I'm like, that's like a dream I've had since I was 12, or something like Les Mis. I'd love to be in that show, and I have recently auditioned for it, and those auditions were a little bit more nerve-wracking just because of how much it means to me personally, but I still tackled them the same way as I would every other audition. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I think it's just really refreshing to hear that, because I think what I'm picking up from you as well in terms of preparation is there's a lot of discipline involved. It's not just, hey, I love doing this, so I'm just going to turn up and see what happens. You know, there's a lot of discipline involved, and there's a lot of mental preparation to be able to, you know, give it your best. And that sounds like it has some impact on the way that you see yourself, in the way that you present yourself, in the way that you're doing your auditions. You know, you're coming in at quite a healthy, I would say, level, as opposed to trying to find security of getting the yes, or trying to, you know, fill voids within yourself. That
and I think probably what's really helped me with that is that I love this job, but I also love things more than this job. Like I love my friends and my family, and I was going to say, I actually don't think I have many hobbies, to be fair, because I just like singing, dancing and acting. But I think for me, I've really learned that there is more to life than work. And I've worked every job under the sun.
Right.
I'm currently doing like au pairing, and I'm teaching on the weekends, and I work in pharmacy as well.
So when you teach, because you mentioned teaching before, what do you teach?
I teach at a Stagecoach. So I teach 6 to 18-year-olds singing, basically, dancing, acting on the weekends. And Amazing. I love it. I do love it.
You're Miss Ray to someone else.
I know. I'm Miss Becca to everyone else.
Miss Becca.
But yeah, so I've worked so many jobs, so I know that this is the right one for me. So I do take it seriously, because I don't want to be working these, like I've been a bar. What do you call that? Bar person?
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
I've poured pints. I've, like I said, I've worked in pharmacy.
Can you get it right?
Yeah.
Can you get it right? Oh, come on.
So.
That's cool.
I think I'm quite good. Like, it's not like,
the panel are now your punters, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I don't want to be working these jobs forever. But I work them because I have bills to pay.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm just waiting for the next job. But in the waiting, I am auditioning and singing at home and annoying the people I live with. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. All right. I'm going to ask you some questions about your personality now.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's fine.
So on the introvert-extrovert scale, where would you say you're at? I think I can guess, but let's just make it official.
It's funny that you giggle, because growing up, I told everyone I was an introvert.
Really?
Like everyone, because I was like, I like my own space, but I am an extrovert. I love being with people, and I think being on the tour really made me go, oh, I am an extrovert, because I could live, work and eat with the same people, and that was like where I got my energy from. But yeah.
Cool. Nice and easy. Have you taken the love languages test? Do you know the love languages test?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I say, that's really funny you should say that. For ages when I was growing up and I would do the test, words of affirmation was my bottom.
Oh, bottom?
Like complete.
Oh, wow.
Like I didn't care about it. Didn't like, nothing anyone would say would like make me, oh, that's so nice. But I think now that I'm more into this career, I think I crave words of affirmation a little bit more. I think because of some rejection I faced, and just the fact that sometimes, I've auditioned for a job and I hear nothing, and it makes me go, oh. So to have words of affirmation in like a relationship and friendship now is probably a little bit more important than it ever has been before. So I think it's words of affirmation.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's done a complete...
complete 180. Yeah.
I guess it kind of makes sense, because it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's just this, but, because of your brand and your product, if I can say, you are looking at words as your ultimate feedback as well on how you're getting on in terms of like your performance and things like that within the acting world. But then also you're tying in your friends and your loved ones. Actually, that is a source of much love for you. Yeah.
And I think I know how I think about myself. It's nice to hear it back, so you don't think that you're just going crazy, or you don't think that you're being like again, naive, like, oh, I think I'm this. And to have someone back that up in you is really important for me. And it's nice to walk into an audition going, other people think this too. It's not just me. And that's nice to have that support system around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What's your second one? Do you know your second one?
I think it's probably acts of service.
Okay.
Because there's nothing more than I love than people. Like, for example, my housemate Sarah, one time she cleaned my whole room and I could have cried.
Really?
It was the best. Or like if someone says, would you like me to hoover your car? 100%.
Amazing.
100%.
I'm thinking about your siblings now because there's 5 of you, right? Mm-hmm. Did they do stuff for you, being the youngest?
Oh, yeah. They're all a lot older than me.
Okay.
So we would always hang out.
Just wondered if it sparked from
Yeah, I don't think, actually, you guys have not done anything for me. No, I think, I can't think of actually that spark from that. Okay. I think it genuinely sparks from choosing this as my career and making sure that I'm just covered in like, you're doing a good job. And I'm like, thank you. So yeah.
No, I love it. That's cool. Would you say you lean to your logical side or your more emotional side?
I think I used to be very logical and now I am definitely more emotional in terms of just feeling something and going with that. I think I can't plan too much in my life right now because I don't have much to plan. And also I don't want to plan too far in the head because I don't know when my next job will be or if I get a last minute audition or where I'm going to live. So I think I'm more in the emotional side now. And I enjoy that about myself because I'm more in tune with myself than I ever have been, basically.
Brilliant.
And I think that's really helpful, especially when you're in an industry that you are presenting yourself. It's nice to know yourself and know what you're presenting and know what you can handle. I'm a big fan of that at the moment.
You don't have to answer with your exact age, but what kind of ballpark are we looking in at if I asked you your age?
I love this question. I'm 25.
You're 25,
yeah.
Okay, great. And the reason I asked that is just, you made a really big statement there in terms of, being in a really good place within yourself, and you're 25, and that's an achievement. Like that's a really big achievement to be able to. And I'm not saying, listen, you're going to grow, right? You're going to find stuff out.
Yeah.
You haven't quite reached perfection, but it's a really strong place to be at an early stage in your life.
I think I've only got to this stage, and I'm definitely know I need to grow more and need to get better at things, and I will obviously have more life experience as I grow up because I am only 25 and I know that. I'm not saying I've got everything together, but I think I got to a place where I was not okay. And I think I can say this because I've done some work in the last year that has really brought me to a place where I am so much better and I am okay. And I think looking back at that journey, as awful as it was, I'm sat here today going, I'm actually in a really good place. And I think looking at hindsight where I was, that's how I've determined that I'm in a good place.
Yeah, sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And my question's going to be, what was the journey?
What was the journey? I lost my dad last year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So and it was quite unexpected. And it just blew everything up in my life, as you can imagine. And I think it taught me a lot about myself, obviously, as that would. And, if we're speaking about courage today and stuff, it definitely brought out every bit of courage that I had in me to sort of like deal with that and deal with that situation and carry on and things. So, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was completely unexpected. Right. As in, one day we were having I used to work in a pharmacy on Sunday, and he would meet me on my lunch break. I had an hour lunch break.
You really have done every job, haven't you?
Yeah, okay. honestly, if any casting directors are listening, please hire me. It went from having lunch every Sunday together to one Sunday him being like, I don't really feel very well. And me being like, oh, that's so weird. Like, maybe you should go to the doctors. And him being like, no, it's nothing. Like, and then the next week, you know, he fainted at work, and that was also really unexpected. And then the week after that, it was, you've got stage 4 cancer. And then the week after that, it was like, you've got 6 months to live.
Wow.
So this all happened in such a short space of time, and my world just like literally just stopped, really. And my dad, sadly passed away 3 months and 13 days after his diagnosis. So that time was the craziest time of my life. Like, it really was. And I quit all my jobs, like all 7 of them at the time. And I moved back home, and I just like was hanging out with my dad and stuff. Yeah, that was just the craziest time ever. And then when he passed away, I then had to deal with the aftermath of that. And that aftermath was, I think, realizing that I wasn't okay. And I think grief is a little bit different, because even though death is completely a normal part of this life that we've signed up to, I just also think that losing someone so significant so young obviously has a massive impact. And
so quickly.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I don't know, like, if this is a weird thing to say, but when I look at a tragic loss, you know, like a car crash or something, I don't know why I whispered that, it just feels very sensitive, or like something like cancer and watching someone die. And I think I would have chosen the other way, which is crazy to think that, because I got to say goodbye, but watching someone die was awful. And it brought out a lot of anxiety in me, a lot of, I kind of came out of it with huge abandonment issues. That was no one's fault.
Yeah, sure.
But I developed severe paranoia and a lot of anxiety and paranoia, to the extent that I would say probably the most thing I feared at that time was myself and my mind. And I know the mind is so powerful.
It is, yeah.
And I was terrified that I had completely lost control. I laugh about it now, but I was thinking things that were just not true. And I would believe them, and I would dream about them, and I would put them into my real life as fact. And even things about my close friends, Harriet and Sarah, they're like shout out to Harriet and Sarah, they're like my bestest friends ever. And we went away, and my dad basically paid for us to go away. And it was a trip that my dad and I were going to go on. And he was like, you need to go, you need to. And I was like, I'm going to go on my own. He was like, no, just take Harriet and Sarah. And I was like, it makes sense. So we all went, and I was so paranoid on that trip that they were going to like leave me and fly home and take all my money, like just like crazy things that when I look back now, I'm like, Becca, why would you ever think that? But it was just pure fear and anxiety and paranoia. And yeah, I was so scared of myself, which I think is, I don't know, I think many people who have suffered with anxiety or paranoia or depression can relate.
Yep.
That you're not scared of the world, you're actually scared of how you see yourself in the world. And sometimes you can't see a way out. There are days where I would be absolutely fine, and I would go to work in the pharmacy, or I'd have an audition, I'd be absolutely fine. And then I'd come home and I'd completely break down. And that was terrifying. Like, I was like, how can I be two completely separate people?
Yeah.
I know I'm an actress, but I'm not that good.
Yeah, sure.
And it was scary that how up and down I was. So yeah, I think that was the scariest thing ever. Also being in that, missing my dad.
Yeah, of course.
And grieving the loss of that, and having to plan funerals, and having to be like, whoa, like he's not going to be here for things. Yeah. And I think that's how, when I look how I was then and how I am now, literally a year later, to probably to the date actually, it's like crazy. And I'm very proud of myself, and I'm very thankful to everyone around me. And, you know, I'm still on my grieving journey,
Sure.
but I'm not scared of it anymore. So, yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, we were talking earlier on about being on a tour.
Yeah.
With your cast members and sort of living out of each other's pockets and being in that kind of community environment, and how powerful that is. and then here with your dad, with Sarah and Harriet, I'm sure there were others, and being in that community is so important, because if you're having, you know, thoughts that are irrational, harmful, things like that, and you try and deal with that on your own, we're just not made for that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like humans. I said at the beginning, we're meant to do life with other people, and we're meant to do life with other people when it's like really good, and also when it's really bad. And I learnt that more than I ever could have imagined last year. And I'm so grateful for all those people. And, you know, even the people who I've worked with recently, they knew all of my story. And, you know, there were times where that job was so hard because ultimately the one person I would have liked to have been there wasn't there.
Yeah, sure.
And they saw me through all of those times, like, you know, just being really emotional, but also like, you know, at the end of the day, I was in the most amazing place ever. All my dreams had basically come true in one job. In
that moment, yeah.
But I was like half happy because my dad wasn't there, and it was, you know, it was in the same year that those things happened. My dad passing away and me getting a dream job, like crazy. Like you couldn't write that stuff.
No, you couldn't.
Like, but you have to choose. I think I just had to choose to live my life and not go back to being scared of feeling these things and just allowing them to feel. But
I like that, like not avoiding the feeling, allowing the feeling to come, and feel the feeling, right,
when it comes. And I had to learn that, like I had to learn many things. I used to be like, when you asked me if I was logical or emotional, I used to be so logical. I used to never cry about things. Like I used to say emotions were a waste of time, crying's a waste of time.
I'm laughing because I can relate. That's all.
And do you know what? In some ways it kind of is like having to stop and cry about something. I'm like, efficient. Oh my gosh, like I've got stuff to do. But when something hits you like that, there is no way I could have run away from that. And it hit me like a, you know, a car crash, and I had to deal with it because my whole world's basically stopped. And I am, you know, I'm grateful for that time that I had to heal, and grateful that, you know, I got taken in by a friend's parents, and that was like so helpful for me. Amazing. So I didn't have to worry about where I was living. You know, because I am a self-employed actor, I didn't have to worry about my paychecks too much because they were so generous to me.
Amazing.
And just everything like that. But what I will say is that we're not meant to do life alone, but my friends, you know, aren't professionals at the end of the day.
Sure.
And I decided to seek out help, medical help. And I think that's probably the bravest thing I've ever done. And just admitting, okay, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need help. And I saw a therapist, and it changed my whole life. It really did.
Amazing.
And, you know, some people might not need that, and some people might need more than that, like actual like medicine and stuff like that. But having a therapist was amazing for me.
I'm a strong believer that everyone needs a therapist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like really. Like I was so anti it before I got some therapy, and I was like, come on, man, that's for other people, not me. I'll work this out. That's cool. I'm a smart guy.
I was the same. I was the same. But
leave it for the people who really need it, right? I don't want to take that resource.
What would I talk about? But I remembered I would drive to therapy. So to be honest, it was the people in my life that really were like, do you think you might need some therapy? And I was like, oh yeah, I will. Put it off for ages. And then when it got really bad, I was like, okay, I'm finally ready to go. And actually they do say you should give it 3 months after a loss before going to, I went to specific grief counselling, which was really helpful. But, you know, we didn't just touch on grief, we touched on everything. And I would drive to therapy going, I just have no idea what I'm going to talk about. And I'd get there and I'd just cry, or I'd get there and I'd have so much to say, or, you know, a therapist's job is to ask you questions. And she was amazing. And you know what? My therapist, she wasn't magic. And I don't particularly believe that like what we spoke about was like, you know, completely groundbreaking, but just the act of speaking every week with someone who wasn't a friend and didn't know me and had no like previous conceptions of me was so helpful. And I just felt, I slowly but surely felt more human again after I did it for 6 months. And to be fair, I could go back again. And I think I probably will at some point. But yeah, it just saved me. But I had to make that decision. I think I just think it was the bravest thing I've ever done.
Oh, come on. Bit of courage. I like it.
I do. I don't think, I'm sure I'll have more things to be brave about, but that was such a scary time. And I am so thankful that I did that, and that I had people around me subtly being like, do you think you should call this number? Or which was really helpful.
They're better than me because I'm pretty blatant with some of my friends. I'm like, you need to see a therapist. They're like, no, bro, you need to see a therapist. They're like, no.
Well, there's probably times that they were like that. I've just chosen not to remember.
Okay, blocked it out.
Yeah.
But it is, and again, it's almost like, I'm really dumbing it down now. So no offense to any therapists, but it's like having a living journal.
Oh, yeah.
It's talking back to you. It's giving, they're giving you questions that you haven't asked yourself. And just like, you prepare for acting and I do what I do for my career and stuff like that. They're fully trained to hear what you're saying and take you and hold your hand on a journey and help you actually decide what you want to decide for yourself.
Yeah.
I think there's a stigma around, they're going to tell you what to do and then I have to do homework and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all. It's almost like holding a mirror up and saying, let's help you on a journey,
And what you said about journaling, I'm really not an expert, but I have, I've gone through therapy and things like that. I tried journaling, and for me, I found it probably not helpful in the sense of I would write a journal about how I'm feeling, and then the next day when I came to write another journal, I would read back what I've written, and that just wasn't very helpful for me. So I think going to a living, breathing journal was nice because I could just leave it all there. And then next week they would bring back the highlights of what we spoke about last week and go from there. I think that was helpful to have a controlled environment when you're dealing with stuff like that, when it's your mind and it's your experiences, was really helpful.
Two things. One, you haven't used the courage journal because the courage journal is the best journal you'll ever use.
I've not used this.
I've got to get you a copy of the courage journal
good.
made by Going Courage ourselves. So
Perfect.
you'll enjoy it. Right, that's a little plug. But
I would love to look at that.
But the other point I was going to say was in terms of therapy and going on a journey, you said something earlier on about your mind being such a powerful tool, and it's so important that we look after it.
So important.
And having a therapist is such a, there's other things. We're not saying therapy is the be all and end all, but but it's a helpful, resource to tap into to kind of get you, and you don't have to get to a complete wreck in order to have a therapist. So I'm just throwing that out there for people who are listening.
That's so true. That is so true, because I think I will now go back to therapy for more preventative manners, and just for more self-growth, because of I did that because I hit rock bottom and it built me back up, but now I don't want to ever plateau or stay in the same place. I do want to. So maybe actually the courage journal will be really good for me now. Because I can actually journal normal things rather than really sad things.
I went to, not that you asked, but I'm just checking this in here. I went to a therapist years and years ago, and I went through anxiety and stuff, and it was really helpful. And then 10 years later, I went back to him. It was only last year, actually. It was actually before we started podcasting, which is, I don't know if that's connected, but anyway, I was like, hey, can you see me? And he's like, cool. And so, I got in touch with him, and we had an hour's session, and half an hour was just filling him in, what's been going on.
Yeah.
And then he sort of just came back at me, and because he'd seen the journey, and which to be honest, I've forgotten so much stuff. His words of affirmation were so strong over me hey, remember that thing you were struggling with? It's not even in your life anymore. You've come a long way. And I think having that living journal to check back on and to go, where am I at now? It's a powerful tool.
I can see how that would actually be super powerful.
So I'm wondering, is there a routine or a habit that you have in your life that keeps you grounded? Some people do meditation, yoga, some people go out for walks, whatever. Is there a habit that you use?
I actually, at the moment, just don't have any routine. I think since finishing the job, I don't have any routine. It's actually quite embarrassing. But I have, I have been running, doing couch to 5K.
Okay.
It's really good. I did it with Sarah during lockdown, and I decided to do it again. And that's been really good. In terms of other routine or habit things, I don't know if I've really got any.
So if we go into the running, what's the motivation behind the running? What's
I think a couple of motivations. One, just trying to keep a bit fit. Like when I was doing the show, I was doing cardio twice a day, like, and you just keep physically fit. But also because I am such a terrible runner, I don't think about anything while I'm running apart from running and like not dying and like breathing. So that's been really helpful, I think. Just having 30 minutes where I don't think about anything, I just run. And also, like, it's scientific, like the endorphins you get after a run are amazing. And I hate to be that person, but I'm just now. Like, I just love how I feel after I've ran or I've gone to the gym or something. But that's it. Have other habits, just, I don't know, is like vulnerability a habit? I don't know. Like,
why not? Yeah.
I think my friends and I are really honest with each other. And I remember I went to a dinner with two of my friends the other week, and I just got some bad news, because bad news follows me sometimes. And I was like, this has just happened. And they were like, okay. So we spent the first 20 minutes of the dinner just like speaking about what had happened and how I felt. And then we just carried on as normal. So I think, I try to make vulnerability a habit, which hasn't been a habit for me in the past. So I think I'm trying to make that a habit for me. And I found that really helpful. And I think it's also, if you start being vulnerable with someone, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be vulnerable with you. So I think not only are you helping yourself, but you're also helping other people, which also makes you feel good. So, yeah.
And there's so much courage in it as well. That's the thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's so weird because you think if you're vulnerable, you're weak, or you're not showing that you've got it all together. But actually there's bravery in saying, I haven't got this all together, or something's happened and I didn't handle it well, or I don't know how to handle it.
I think the reality is that the things we fear are usually real, tangible things. For example, I have a very irrational fear of slugs, like I just do.
Slugs?
It's the weirdest thing. But that is so irrational because slugs actually don't affect me. But like fearing something like people's opinions of you, that is a real thing, because the reality is that people are going to have opinions of you. What you need to try and change is how that affects you. And I always think that if we can overcome a fear, that takes, like, say we thought of our bodies or our minds as like a shelf. If you had all your things that you thought or felt or feared on a shelf, if you took one away, there's an empty space for something else to go in. So I think for me, if I thought of something really quickly, I said to myself one day, this is so bold, I'm not going to worry about money ever.
Wow. And
I just took whatever fear I have about money and I just got rid of it. I don't know how. I just did it.
You just did it.
What that meant was that left space on my shelf. And I think what went into it was generosity and like peace. And so everything that I took out, other things filtered in.
Amazing.
So if you can take things out, I promise that things will go in. And I don't have a lot of money, and I don't, I work lots of jobs just to sort of afford life, but I don't have fear about it.
Wow.
Still. And I think it's because I let other things go in.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I see it. If I fear something, the only thing I can't get over is my fear of slugs. I just can't. I physically can't. But what I'm trying to say is that I think if we call things out, it makes them smaller. And I think if you're vulnerable with your friends, it can help in that moment, making your problems not smaller, but seem more approachable and more tangible.
Sure. With trusted people, I'm just underlining that part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, slugs. Okay.
So scary.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know what it is.
We had a spider in the studio earlier, and you were like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I don't mind spiders, but if there was a slug, I would have had to walk out.
Wow.
I would have said, rebook me in. I can't do it.
Can't do it today, not today. Amazing, wow. But I really like that. I'm going to have to process that later, but just in terms of the shelf and if you take that worry of money, it could be like if I was applying it to my life, I'd pick something and go, well, actually that's taking up space on my shelf, on my up here shelf.
I think I'm quite a visual person, and I think that just helps me a lot. And there are, sometimes, you have to accept that maybe that will just always be there.
Sure.
But how can you like dress it, or how can you give it a smaller space, or how can you, put something on top of it? Not like masking the problem. And like, I don't want to ever do that, because I've done that where I've like pushed emotions down. I was like so good at this, and I would push emotions down because do you know Enneagram?
Oh yes, the test.
Yeah. So I'm an Enneagram 7.
Right.
So our main thing is that we don't want to be hurt ever. So I would like push all my emotions down, and then one day they would all just come out, and that was awful. And like my friends can testify to that. There's like the worst days ever.
Yes.
So I never want to mask something, but if I can like push something aside, or I can put, you know, something next to it to guard it, then that would be helpful.
Especially if it's something that's not actually going to add any value, like worrying about something.
Yeah.
It's not going to, if you can't control the thing, what
exactly.
can you do, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that. And then touching on emotional stuff and irrationality and all the rest of it. If you don't, I think we said feeling the feeling, right? Feeling the grief and stuff. If you don't actually allow those feelings to be felt, I don't know if that's grammatically correct as a sentence.
Yeah, it makes sense though.
But it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
They're going to come out somewhere, right? Something somewhere is going to snap.
Exactly.
You know, there's going to be anxiety, depression. There's might be a physical, you know, symptom or something. So it's really important that we actually tackle them head on.
Yeah. And if I just knew that with my sort of like dealing with like paranoia and stuff, if I didn't call it out, it would remain true in my brain. And the things that I thought were true were absolutely the opposite of the truth. So just speaking about them, again, just being really vulnerable and saying, this is what I think is true. And to have someone who you trust go, let me tell you that's not true, is healing and is power and just helps. And I know that that's like such a specific scenario, but I think you can apply it to loads of different things.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about courage. And, you know, courage can mean many things to different people, but in that moment, for me, courage was just saying how I felt, and to someone else, maybe that's what they do every day. So yeah, it's all relative, isn't it? Like everything in life is relative, and what I'm going through and what you're going through hold the same power in both of our lives, but they're just different scenarios. And I think that's really important to remember as well.
I think so too. I think, you know, we start off in different starting points. Yeah. And generally speaking, we all are trying to end at the same destination. Yeah. Which is love, basically. Yeah. And so we all kind of, you know, it's really easy to compare ourselves with each other and say, well, you know, it worked for Becca, so, you know, it's going to work for me or whatever. And sometimes, there are shared experiences that are really helpful, but it's also knowing, well, what's right for me? And sometimes we don't know what's right for ourselves. Yeah. Hence the therapy, hence the friendships, hence the journals, hence the habits, whatever it is, to try and get you on that path. Yeah. You kind of already naturally got there, but I was going to ask you, so when you think of the word courage, what comes to mind, you know?
I don't actually know what the definition is, but like for me, it would probably be doing something that doesn't seem natural in the moment. Right. Maybe that's how I would think it. And I can just think about scenarios that I've stepped out in faith and courage that have not actually felt natural, but the outcome is always that I've felt relieved, empowered, encouraged. You know, I've gotten the result that I wanted, or if I haven't got the result in something, I've seen the positives in what's happened. I think whenever you step out in courage and you know that you're doing the right thing and you know that it's not going to harm anyone else around you, the outcome can only be positive. And I don't know if that's like the optimist in me, but I think there's power in just allowing yourself to see things from other angles. And when you do something, when you take a step and you're like, this is what I've done and this is the outcome, is that you've done something. That's better than nothing. And that's better than just sitting at home thinking about, and listen, I'm an overthinker. Sure. I overthink everything. So I can really like, I'm just really good at sitting thinking this is what's going to happen. And actually when I've gone and done it, the outcome is so not what I thought, and it's less scary and it's worked out well and everyone's okay. Everyone's all right. Everyone's fine. But yeah, and obviously there are situations where that require more courage. And that's when you can kind of maybe get someone else to help or bring someone else on board or just believe in yourself.
You've said some statements there that all take courage. To believe in yourself, right? You need some courage, right? To get help, you need some courage, right? To be an optimist, you need courage because it's so easy to be a pessimist, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, that's not going to work or whatever. Yeah. There's literally no effort. So there's a few things you said there that all take an element of bravery and a risk-taking sort of mindset to move forward.
Yeah. I've never been one to have a plan B.
Right.
Which sometimes hasn't gone great, like genuinely, but usually my plan A will remain plan A, but will have slight differences.
Sure.
So I'm always like, oh, I'm doing my plan A, but actually I've adapted. And I think that's a skill in itself. So I think being adaptable and being optimistic, partnered with courage, what can go wrong?
What can go wrong? Exactly. Only good things can happen. Yeah, I like it. Is there a movie, a book, or a play? Let's throw a play into it. That's really sort of ignited courage in you or inspired you in some way.
I probably pick my favourite film. My favourite film ever is The Blind Side.
Oh my God.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I love The Blind Side.
Best.
It's so good.
And that's been my favourite film for years.
Yeah.
Like if there was a quiz about my life, that would be number one. And actually I encourage people to have a favourite film and a favourite song because it's just like, I don't know, I think it says a lot about a person. I like that.
I get, so some of my friends who watch the podcast say, you say amazing a lot, Rix. You need to choose a different word, but it is amazing. Yeah. I am amazed by that film.
Yeah, me too.
It's such a great film. And it's a true story as well, right?
It's a true story. That's why I love it. It's based on a true story. It makes me want to be a better person.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing I can say about that film. It makes me laugh. It makes me cry. I love the actors in it. I love the story. I just love it. And I think that film, the underlying thing in what I take away from it is that it breaks all the stereotypes and it just makes me want to do good.
Yeah.
So when I watch that, I'm like, oh, I need to give to charity now, or I need to go and do this. And I love films that make you feel like that. But I mean, there are some courageous steps in that film alone.
So many.
But that film just makes me want to be a better person.
I agree.
That's why I love it.
All the scenes are coming to me now.
So
I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it, but yeah, just so good. And the central character, you know, how she, just her responses.
Yeah, I mean, Sandra Bullock is my favorite actress.
I think by far it's the best. I think the best role that she's had in all of what she's done. It's just phenomenal. You know,
she is,
and
so
she's been
good
in a lot of good stuff as well.
But, but I love that film. I come away from that film feeling like I could conquer the world with kindness, genuinely.
Yeah, it really challenges you.
It
does. The Blind Side. Go watch The Blind Side if you haven't watched The Blind Side.
It's so good.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm on the same page as you. Sorry, I got lost in the film now. But the question was, has it inspired you? And it sounds like it has.
It definitely does. Excellent. And it is my favorite film for that reason. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
100%.
So drawing from your experiences, I know we've talked a little bit about the loss of your dad and some of the things that you've had to mentally look at when in your acting career as well. Can you think of any experiences where you had to really, like a specific one where you had to really put it on the line, take a risk, and maybe you were like, oh, I can't do this?
I think, I don't know, I don't want to, not to repeat myself, but I think the obvious answer would be, my job. I take risks every day with auditions I go for, and also just a risk being in the industry, not knowing when your next job will be, not having the most stable income or life and whatever. But I think that all my experiences about my dad was probably the top at the moment. And I think when my dad got ill, I was living in London and I left that, and I wouldn't have done any other decision. But I think leaving that to go back home and to sort of like be closer to my dad, I don't regret that at all, because I got that time with him. And it was like, I think I moved and then 6 weeks later he passed away. But I think that was really courageous, purely because I spent a lot of time building that life up for myself, like the London life, and then moving back, and I'm still kind of living at home, but just like it's taken me longer to build that up, basically. And I think I'm just I think actually the most courageous thing I've done was accept it, that happened. Just accepting that happened, and everything will feel better and get better, and doing the work. Like, it's just, you've just got to do the work. And I knew in myself, I didn't want to stay that way. And I didn't want, I don't know if we'll call them like a mental illness. I didn't want them to define me. And I still struggle like sometimes,
Sure.
But like I said earlier, I'm in a much better place now. And I'm so glad that I made those decisions, and I'm glad about the people I had around me. Yeah. And I would do it again.
You do it again?
Kind of, yeah.
As in, you would approach it with
I would approach it the same thing.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's not easy. I don't want people to think that I'm like, oh, I did it. Like, I got out. Like, it was awful. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And there are still times where I slip back into that, and I have to check myself, and I have to ring a friend, and I have to take a day off, and that is fine. Like, but I've accepted that that's okay.
Yeah.
And I have changed, I am a lot more guarded with my emotions sometimes now when it comes to people, and I don't trust as easily. And I have an anxious attachment style now that I'm working through, but I don't regret any of the decisions I made, because it led me to where I am now. And it was hard, but it was worth it. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. Yeah. You mentioned attachment styles. I don't know where to go. I've got so much to say about this, but have you read the book called Attached? I don't know if you've come across that one. It's got like a magnet on the front cover.
Okay.
I'm going through it. It's really good.
Okay.
Really good. Yeah. I'd recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Check it out. It's really cool. And I think I have a similar attachment style. And so it's the journey to try and, move towards secure attachment.
Yeah.
And there's, steps, whichever side you're on, to try and get to that sort of central point, let's say.
Yeah, it does definitely look like it's something that you can achieve, because I also know loads of other people in my life who don't have a different attachment style to me. But I think what I felt was that there's power in acknowledging this stuff in your life, and acknowledging, like, back when I was ill, just being like, I'm ill, and acknowledging that. And it took me ages. I was living in complete denial. And I think, most of that was grief and the journey that you go on with grief.
Yeah.
But also some of that was just acknowledging where I am, and standing up one day and getting out of bed finally and being like, okay, today's the day, which was so scary, but I'm so thrilled that I did it.
There's I don't know who said this quote, but they say the best way to overcome grief is to grieve.
Yeah.
And everybody else, well, not everybody else, we have a tendency to avoid the grieving process.
Yeah.
Thinking that it won't catch up with us, but it will catch up.
It does. And do you know what? My dad passed away on the Friday, and my graduation was the Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my dad passing away, and he passed away at home. So we had to deal with all of that. And then on the Friday afternoon, I went to get my eyebrows done, because I was in to be honest, I think I was in shock.
Sure.
So I went to get my eyebrows done, and I made the decision to go to my graduation, even though it wasn't how we were going to plan to do it at all. I planned for my dad to be there. And I went to the graduation, and I was like, I look back now, and I was honestly living in this haze of shock and grief and everything like that. I'm so grateful I went, because I had to, celebrate what you achieve, right? And I loved my uni experience, and I'm glad I got to graduate and celebrate that.
And as a dad myself,
yeah,
I'd want you to have gone if I was in that position.
Well, that's what he said to me. He's like, you can't miss anything just because I'm ill or I'm not going to be there. Yeah, I think I was just, when you lose someone, you go into planning. Like, I was planning the funeral and doing all these things, and then it suddenly just hit me one day. Genuinely, I can remember where we were. I was actually in Barcelona, on this random street, and I remember it just all hitting me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where I am. Like, I was that disorientated. And I think that's normal to kind of go into that shock. But the minute I allowed myself to grieve and to acknowledge what had happened, that's when the fun started, I think. And that's where the courage, I had no choice but to be courageous and choose that over anything else. And I'm
glad you did.
Me too.
Can I ask you, what was something inspirational that your dad, an impact that he would have had on you that was inspirational?
My dad's quote in life was, "The best is yet to come." And I just truly believe that. I believe that in a sense that not that I'm not sat here thinking I'm happy, but I could be happier. The best is yet to come. I'm just thinking that every day is a new day, and every day something amazing will come because the best is yet to come. So, something amazing will happen every day, and I'm taking day by day. But I just remember that all the time. If there's anything that I'm struggling with or something didn't go my way, I'm like, the best is yet to come. One, because, I'm young, and two, because my dad said it. So it's got to be true. But yeah, he was a true optimist. Nothing would ever faze him. And I'd like to think that I got that quality from him.
It sounds like you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What would be something that you'd want people out there to do in their lives based on what we've talked about today, based on your journey around courage? What's your golden tip?
I think simply it would be, if you are struggling, just tell someone and ask for help, whatever means that may be. If that's just ringing a friend, if that's booking therapy, if that's buying the journal, Go Encourage journal. No, seriously, because I think if you are in that place where you're struggling, and it might not be something crazy, it might not be mental health, it might be finances, or it might be you're struggling with your body image, or it might just be that you're struggling making friends. Just tell someone. And I can guarantee that when you actually speak it out, you'll have a hold of it more than you did when it was just inside. Because there's power in speaking it out and calling it out. So that's what I would say. Okay. And watch The Blind Side. Definitely, you got to watch that. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you agreed to come on.
I've had such a good time.
I think we had an Instagram chat, didn't we? I was like, hey, Becca, come on the podcast. In fact, while you're here, I think something on your Instagram, I think you're singing. I think there's like a show reel or something.
Yeah, my vocal reel.
And you're amazing. Thanks. Incredible singer. Wow.
Thank you.
Like multi-talented. So dancing, acting and singing.
Yeah, they're
I haven't quite seen you in your dancing yet, but singing, wow, I was blown away.
It's okay. I was tap dancing on the West End with Ian, so it's
nice. Yeah, you've got some skills. Thank
you.
Brilliant. And just if people, want to connect with you online, where's the best place to find you? How could they?
Probably, I want to say something cool, like you can ring my agent, but this is I can't give out his personal details. Sure. Maybe just Instagram, Becca Francis, find me there.
Brilliant. I'll put a link in the description below as well.
I've had such a good time. It's nice to just chat and speak about things.
Thanks so much. I think you've given us all a lot to think about. Love to have you back in the future. Yeah. We're going to do we're starting very soon actually. We're going to do a relationship series. So if you've got some thoughts around relationships, it'd be really interesting. I think they're a fascinating part of the human journey. They are. And like I said, we're not meant to do life by ourselves, apparently. Yeah, apparently. So so it'd be really cool to maybe have you back for that. Yeah, sure. And chat through some of that stuff. Let's do it. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you. And whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening from, move forward and go encourage. I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Becca Francis, and I think there's a lot there for us to process and really think about what she had to share with us based on her experiences around courage. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, really helps us out. You can click on the subscribe button below, like the video if you found it useful, do write in the comments if you'd like to reach out to Becca, and you can also follow her on her Instagram as well. If you don't already know, we also have the Courage Journal available now. You can go to www.goencourage.com to get yourself a copy. All right, until the next time, keep moving forward and keep going in courage.